Thank you. Please, would you help me welcome up our beloved Reverend Cathy.
Good morning. Thank you, Doc. That was a beautiful way to begin my talk. I appreciate that he picked up on my message last week, because I've been thinking a lot about Amazing Grace. So this weekend we are commemorating Labor Day, and this holiday grew out of the efforts of labor unions over a century ago. The holiday was first proposed in the late 19th century, and two men are credited with the original idea, both of them union men. Peter J. McGuire, a co-founder of the American Federation of Labor, and Matthew McGuire, a machinist and secretary of the Central Labor Union in New York. The purpose of the holiday was, in McGuire's words, to celebrate those who from rude nature have delved and carved all the grandeur we behold. I don't know if I liked him calling it rude nature, and I think that we didn't need to carve it up so much, but I'm getting the drift. We need to be thankful for all of the laborers that have helped to build our country and our world. Friedrich Froebel, a German educator, said this: "The delusive idea that men and women merely toil and work for the sake of preserving their bodies or procuring for themselves bread, houses, and clothes is degrading. The true origin of a person's activity and creativity lies in the divine and spiritual element within." Wow. Do you feel that way about the work you do? Or have you had second thoughts about your profession, thinking maybe you should have taken a different turn? Have you ever been caught up in the should have beens? As in, I should have been a secretary, but I wasn't the type. She got it. Maybe I should have been an art gallery owner, but I just couldn't get the hang of it. A chimney sweep? No, that just didn't suit me. A plumber, but I felt so out of sync. A baseball player, but I couldn't catch on. Or maybe a cardiologist, but I just didn't have the heart. Couldn't help myself. Enough of that nonsense. We all want our work to be fulfilling and meaningful. We want it to reflect a divine and spiritual element within. I know we do, but does our work bring that feeling to us, or do we bring that feeling to our work? 19th century preacher and author Henry Giles said, "There is no work so menial that you cannot exalt it. There's no work so impassive that you cannot breathe your soul into it. There's no work so dull that one may not enliven it with their own being." We've all seen this in action at some time. It could have been that waitress, or wait, maybe I need to be politically correct and say that member of the wait staff. It could have been that person who served your food with such enthusiasm and expertise that she was actually long remembered way after the meal was finished. Or maybe it was that gardener whose love for the plants and the trees he tended just shone through and contributed to the beauty of the environment. Or maybe it was a teacher, one who took the time to make each child in that class feel seen, heard, and respected. And I had the pleasure of interacting with such a worker this last week when I needed help accessing some material on the Kaiser Permanente website. We all know how fun navigating these huge corporate websites can be. So I couldn't find what I was looking for, and I saw some instructions that said, if you need help, call this number. And the person who answered the phone, Kim, absolutely bent over backwards to help me, even though it was a bit of a challenge for her. At one point, I became really frustrated, and I'm praying that I didn't say this with an edge in my voice, but I just said, "Never mind, I've taken up enough of your time." She responded with such compassion, telling me We're going to figure this out, Mrs. Hough. I'm committed to helping you, and I have lots of patience. Hang in there with me. And she was committed, and she did. She had lots of patience. And she found what I needed, and it was definitely one of those times when my faith in humanity was restored. These are the folks who enliven their work with their own being, and it shows, and it makes a difference. So it's like that epitaph that was once seen on a tombstone in Boston. Here lies the body of Andrew Murray, who cobbled shoes to the glory of God for 40 years. So I'm like, here lies the body of Kim, who surfed the Kaiser Permanente website for 40 years. She just did it with such grace and such love of her job and of wanting to assist. So I think, yeah, our goals should be, we want to make our work a labor of love, whatever it is that we may be doing. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't quite mastered the art of making housework a labor of love. But I have my moments. And I thank God for this teaching that led me to the understanding that when my work was no longer engaging me at the level that I desired, my spiritual practice would always guide me. And it would lead me in two ways. It would either lead me to change my attitude about the work I was doing, or it would lead me to attract new and different work. Because we all want that work that keeps us in the divine creative flow and enhances our divine nature. So yeah, I'm inviting you all to enjoy your holiday, enjoy the next 2 days off, but I'm also encouraging you all to take some time today and tomorrow to simply contemplate and extend appreciation and confer some blessings on the thousands, the millions of workers, known and unknown, who show up and who contribute in so many ways to the enhancement and enrichment of our personal lives. And we also remember to be grateful for the ways in which our work has supported us, not only materially, but spiritually. Happy Labor Day. Yeah. And speaking of laborers, there was once a stonecutter who was dissatisfied with himself and with his position in life. One day he passed a wealthy merchant's house, and through the open gateway he saw all these fine riches and possessions and all these important visitors, and he said, how powerful that merchant must be. I want to be that person. He just became envious and jealous, and he said, I just want to be that merchant. And he said, I don't want to live the life of a stonecutter anymore. And lo and behold, to his great surprise, he suddenly became the merchant, enjoying more luxuries and power than he had ever dreamed, and being the envy of those less wealthy than himself. But soon after, a high official passed by in a beautiful sedan chair, accompanied by attendants and escorted by soldiers beating gongs to announce his presence. Everyone, no matter how wealthy, had to bend low before this procession. So the stonecutter thought, how powerful this official is. I wish I could be a high official. And bingo, he became that high official, being carried everywhere in this lavishly embroidered sedan chair. And he was feared and he was hated by the people all around who had to bow down before him as he passed. But one summer day, the official felt very uncomfortable sitting in his sticky sedan chair. And he looked up at the sun that was shining really proudly, unaffected by his presence. How powerful that sun is, he said. I wish I could be the sun. Abracadabra, he became the sun, shining fiercely down on everyone, scorching the fields, cursed by the farmers and laborers. But then a huge black cloud moved between him and the earth, so that his light could no longer shine on everything below. Oh my God, that storm cloud is so powerful. I wish I could be a cloud. And there he became a cloud, flooding the fields and villages, and shouted at by everyone. But then soon after, he found he was being pushed away by this great force, realized it was the wind. Oh my God, the wind is even more powerful than the cloud. I wish I could be that wind. And there he became the wind, blowing tiles off the roofs of houses, uprooting trees, and hated and feared by all below him. But after a while, the wind ran up against something that would not move, no matter how forcefully he blew against it. It was a huge, towering stone. How powerful that stone is, he thought. I wish I could be that stone. And then he became the stone, more powerful than anything on earth. But as he stood there, he heard the sound of a hammer pounding a chisel into the solid rock, and felt himself being changed. What could be more powerful than I, the stone, he thought. And he looked down and he saw far below him the figure of a stone cutter. This story is all about discovering the power that resides within us and understanding that we have possessed this power all along. It came into us, it came with us into this incarnation, and it will accompany us when we go on our next great adventure in the eternality of our being. Okay, what's the power? What's the power I'm speaking of? Of course, it's the power of our connection to spirit, the understanding that we are all part of this great unity of oneness. It's that which individualizes as us and also propels us to rise above current conditions and forge ahead in our efforts to reach higher and become, like that stonecutter, more aware of who and what we truly are. So in the month of August, we were encouraged to rest and rejuvenate and reflect and ready ourselves for the next ascent on our journey. And we begin that ascent this month, September, with the theme of reaching higher toward a greater understanding of ourselves and of our place in the universe. Now, this may involve, as it often does, pushing beyond our comfort zones and using our understanding in innovative ways to advance us forward, while we are carrying with us the wisdom and building upon the wisdom and experiences we've gained along the way. We rise as we continue this journey of awakening to our spiritual magnificence, one step at a time. There's only one infinite reality. We call it many names, including but not limited to God. We might call it life. We might call it universal spirit. We might call it creative intelligence, first cause, the thing itself. Doesn't matter what we call it. That one infinite reality is undivided, complete, and whole within itself. And this oneness creates everything outside of itself, and therefore includes the absolute and the relative, the tangible and the intangible, and the physical and metaphysical aspects of reality. This one infinite reality is eternal. Contained within our Center for Spiritual Living statement of belief are these words: we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual, forever and ever expanding, forever and ever reaching higher as we hold our vision before us like a beacon. Now, you all remember Richard Bach. He wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull way back in the day, and he recalled this memory when he asked the question, remember the high board at the swimming pool? After days of looking up, you finally climbed the wet steps to the platform, and from there it was higher than ever. There were only two ways down: the steps to defeat or the dive to victory. You stood on the edge, shivering in the hot sun, deathly afraid. At last, you leaned too far forward, and it was too late for retreat, and you dived. The high board was conquered, and you spent the rest of the day diving. Richard Bach says, climbing 1,000 boards. Climbing 1,000 high boards. That's how we do it. We demolish fear and we turn into human beings. Ooh, we've had a lot of high boards to climb lately in the attempt to demolish our fear. And we can't even see the water below. We have to step out on faith. And this is the kind of faith that Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about when he said, faith is like taking that first step, even when you don't see the staircase. In his book, The Second Mountain, David Brooks tells this story. He said, a guy bought a house with a bamboo stand planted right near his driveway. And he could see the future, so he decided to get rid of this bamboo stand. So he cut it down. And then he took an axe to it and he chopped all its roots, smashed them into little pieces. He dug down and he removed as much of the root system as he possibly could. And then he poured plant poison over what remained. And then he filled the hole with several feet of gravel and, taking no chances, poured cement over the gravel. But 2 years later, he noticed something. A little green bamboo shoot working its way up through the cement. That bamboo was unquenchable. It could not stop pushing upward. And David Brooks said, we all have something like this inside ourselves. It is our desiring heart. I resonated with this story because I too possess a humongous bamboo plant patch. Thank you, sweet Doug, for planting that. Anyway, there's this humongous patch in my backyard. I won't poison it. Don't believe in using poison. I'm not going to pour cement over it. I know that it will win. So thankfully, I have a gardener who has wonderful weed-eating magic and can keep it relatively at bay. But I love the analogy of that unquenchable bamboo and our desiring hearts, because it is the collective nature of our desiring hearts that keeps us moving forward, despite seeming setback after setback in the world of appearances. Again, like saying I don't consider housework magical work, I'm not going to lie to you about this either. I've had some really difficult days and sleepless nights over the course of this pandemic and all the other effects that are showing up in the world as conflict and death and destruction. My faith has been tested time and time again, sometimes within the same hour. But I have that desiring heart that David Brooks talks about that leads me to actions that clarify my thoughts and move my feet forward, maybe only an inch at a time, but move them forward on the path of remembering what it is I need to remember and knowing what it is I need to know. So most of the time, reaching higher does not, at least in my life, does not mean doing great things and taking huge steps. Sometimes it means something as simple as finding a trusted friend to share my feelings with, one who will listen to me with compassionate, not judgment, and just let me show up with my harsh, naked feelings just hanging out all over the place. For me, one of the greatest challenges of being a metaphysical teacher is not to use this teaching against myself when I falter in my faith. I know you all know what I'm talking about. It's that endless mind chatter. Endless mind chatter. Mine, I don't know about yours, but mine goes something like this. What the hell is wrong with you? You know the teaching. You have the tools. You must be incompetent to let yourself sink into these feelings of despair. And who are you to even have these feelings? You're not sick. Your bills are paid. You have food on the table. You have safe shelter. You have good friends. You have beauty all around you. Blah, 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 blah. And that's when I need to reach higher and to be vulnerable and to seek out someone who's willing to be a sounding board and help me to bring those feelings forward, put them in the light, honor them, so that I can then move forward in releasing them. Someone who can love me in that moment the way I am unable to love myself. So last week, it was Spirit showing up as Rev Bev, who listened. We're in the middle of a meeting, and I'm just off on my tangent about the state of the world. But you know, she just sat there. She just looked at me. She just accepted my words without coaxing me into a spiritual bypass, and she helped me to return to my center. I am so grateful that she was a strong and steady presence for me in the moment when I needed it, because this is what feeds me and enables me to be a strong and steady presence for others who may need that. And you know what else I'm really grateful for? I'm really grateful that she waited for the perfect time to send me a meme. And this is what the meme said. It said, "This, my dear, is the greatest challenge of being alive, to witness the injustice of this world and not allow it to consume our light." It was the perfect message, and it was sent at a time when I was able to take it in and absorb it fully. She didn't try to shove it down my throat at the time I was feeling all these feelings. She allowed what needed to come forth, and then afterwards tied it all up in a beautiful bow with a wonderful message. And you know, my light may dim on more occasions than I would like, but it's never extinguished. It is never consumed. And just like your light, my flame grows stronger when it is sparked by the love of another person. So I think in these times, we can reach higher. We don't have to do amazing, huge things. There's lots of things we can do. We can reach higher just by being present to each moment and maybe asking ourselves, what would love do when we're faced with challenges of people, places, and things? What would love do? Eckhart Tolle reminds us, the key to transformation is to make friends with this moment. What form it takes doesn't matter. Say yes to it. Allow it. Be with it. Simple actions. There's so many simple actions we can take and commitments we can make. And we may have to recommit every morning, but that's okay. It's like Bonnie said, we're standing in that stream and life is behind us and life is moving away from us. But we can recommit every single day of our lives. We can reach higher when we love ourselves enough to accept our feelings as an important part of our spiritual journey. We reach higher when we choose to forgive ourselves and others, knowing that the soul awakens through the act of forgiveness. We can reach higher when we recognize and take the opportunity to extend kindness to others wherever possible. We reach higher when we suspend judgment and know and remember that the Spirit is present everywhere despite appearances. And when we give our attention to any situation free from judgment, opinion, or expectation, we open up the interior and the exterior space to the acceptance and the integration of what is happening in the present moment, while we're also detaching ourselves from the ups and downs of duality and good and bad and right or wrong. And by this action, we're led to choose more consciously the life experience that we want to live. We reach higher when we remember our oneness and allow this truth to keep clear our perspective when we get confused by the world of effects and we think and feel that we are separate, because it's from that place of separation that our judgments between good and evil begin. We reach higher when we recognize and fan the spiritual spark that inhabits everyone, especially focusing on extending love and fanning that spiritual spark in those who are most in need of our acceptance, our tenderness, our understanding, our compassion, our love. We reach higher when we incorporate gratitude into our days as we follow Scripture's advice to look to the good and praise it. And we are able to see life creation as life affirming. We can remember that there are so many people and institutions working diligently to promote change. And we can align ourselves with the organizations that make our hearts sing. We can participate in whatever way feels right to us. And we can recognize that gratitude is more than an emotion. It's an attitude which carries us beyond doubt and which attracts and magnifies the good that is focused upon. Gratitude accepts with perfect faith that which has not been yet manifested, as if it were already here. And most importantly, we reach higher by committing to and maintaining a daily spiritual practice, even when the mind chatter is clouding our vision. Actually, especially when the mind chatter is clouding our vision. And you know we don't have to do this alone. We have each other, and we have the spiritual power that is present in this community. Ooh, there's a lot of it. And we have, as Bev said, our healing arm, our practitioners. If you're having trouble praying for yourself, ask one of us to pray with you, pray for you. So happy Labor Day, everyone. Khalil Gibran wrote these beautiful words: "When you work, you fulfill a part of Earth's dream. To work with love is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as if your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to charge all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit. Work is love made visible." And I also want to say happy Rosh Hashanah to all our Jewish brothers and sisters. Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, begins on Monday. As Labor Day is easing out, it's easing in, and it commemorates the creation of the world and marks the beginning of the days of awe, which are a 10-day period of introspection and repentance that culminates in Yom Kippur, also known as the Day of Atonement. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are the two high holy days in the Jewish religion. And Rabbi Rachel reminds us in this Jewish New Year, these are her words. Rabbi Rachel says, the divine commands us to let the land rest, to release debts, to resolve disputes, and to open our hands and hearts to those in need. In other words, the divine commands us to reach higher. I think this is great advice for all of us, no matter what spiritual path we follow. And so it is. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Cathy. Whew, there was so much in there. That was wonderful. Thank you.